Hey guys, welcome to 12 Tone. Today we're going to talk about diminished 7th chords. These are a diminished triad with a diminished 7th on top and harmonic to a major 6th. They're a bit of an advanced tool and you want to use them sparingly, but they have a lot of really interesting properties. First of all, they just sound harsh. There's a lot of dissonant intervals involved. That alone can help create an uncomfortable, angry edge, but that's barely scratching the surface of what a diminished 7th chord can do. But where would you find one? Even Locrian and Altered only have minor 7ths. No scale we've ever looked at has a diminished one. Well, that's not quite true. A while back we talked about variations of the minor mode, including harmonic minor. Harmonic minor has a major 7th and a minor 6th. The interval between these is a diminished 7th, and combined with the 2nd and the 4th degrees, you get yourself a diminished 7th chord. So we know where it comes from, but it's used much more broadly than just minor, and to understand why we have to look at its shape. A diminished 7th chord can be thought of as two tritones stuck together. For instance, E diminished 7 has E to B flat, a tritone, and then G to D flat, also a tritone. And when we see tritones, we immediately expect dominant function, and that's usually how diminished 7ths are used. That E diminished 7, for example, probably wants to resolve up a half step to some sort of F chord. In fact, many theorists view it not as a 7th chord itself, but as an incomplete voicing of a dominant flat 9. That E diminished 7 is kind of just a C7 flat 9 without a root, although whether or not that's the right way to think about it is certainly debatable. I prefer to just call it a 7 diminished 7, but a lot of very smart people disagree with me. Given that these are an advanced harmonic technique often surrounded by other such complex sounds, it should come as no surprise that diminished 7ths are often used as secondary dominants too. They work the same as any other dominant chord. Actually, for some uses they may work better, but I'm getting ahead of myself. More on that later. So far, everything I've said hasn't really set this apart from, say, a minor 7 flat 5. If you want to understand what makes a diminished 7th chord truly special, you need to zoom all the way in on the intervals. Let's use our E diminished 7th again. E up to G is a minor 3rd. G up to B flat is a minor 3rd. B flat up to D flat is a minor 3rd, and D flat up to E is an augmented 2nd, which is enharmonic to a minor 3rd. It's a chord built exclusively from a single interval. This gives it a really interesting property known as symmetry. If instead of spelling our E diminished 7 with a D flat, we spell it with an enharmonic C sharp, we have the notes of C sharp diminished 7. We can also call it G diminished 7, A sharp diminished 7, and others. In fact, there are only 3 unique sounding diminished 7th chords: this one, and this one. After that, the cycle just repeats. This gives you some really interesting ambiguity because any two chords with roots a minor 3rd apart have the same diminished 7th. 7 diminished 7 of 4 is exactly the same as 7 diminished 7 of 2, letting you hide where you're resolving to until the very last second. In minor, you can even use that same chord to escape to a flat 6, surprising the listener with a tonic function chord. That's awesome enough already, but the diminished 7 has one more trick up its sleeve. Some of you may have noticed earlier that I said it usually plays a dominant function role. Well, let's take a look at when it doesn't. These are called common tone diminished 7 resolutions, which I know is a mouthful, but trust me, it's worth it. This is when you resolve to a chord whose root is one of the notes in your diminished 7 chord. So how does that work? The simplest version is what's known as the +2 diminished 7. This is really a 1 diminished 7, but we call it a +2 to account for certain rules about chromatic alterations. Let's put ourselves in the key of A flat major. The sharp 2 of the scale is a B natural, and a diminished 7 built on that includes D, F, and A flat, which we'll put at the bottom. To resolve this, our A flat stays still. The tritone between B and F resolves how you expect it to a C and an E flat. The D can go up or down, it doesn't really matter. Either way, you get this sound, which sounds surprisingly nice for such a dissonant tool. There's also a variation called the +6 diminished 7, which is the same trick but used on the 5 chord, and everything moves up a half step to create a dominant 7th. And that's diminished 7ths. There's actually enough to say about these that I can do a whole nother episode, and I will soon, but for now, try the exercises, join our mailing list, and keep on rockin'.